Hi. I'm going to go through the ethical problem solving model for my case presentation on a scenario that was given to me. The scenario has been as a 15-year-old self-contained student in a self-contained program for students with behavior disorders. And during his reeval, he bragged about setting a stray cat on fire and used gasoline to start that fire. After talking to him a little bit more, he goes on to tell in some detail about several other animals he has mutilated or killed. And those disclosures of animal cruelty, coupled with what we know about Ben's history, cause deep concern. Of course, Ben needs more mental health assistance than the school can provide. So, how should I respond, and what is the best course of action? So we're going to talk first about the assumptions that we have. We can assume that Ben feels like his disclosures to the school psychologist will be kept confidential, and that the school psychologist would not be able to tell anybody about what he has said. We can assume that Ben is we could assume that Ben is not being truthful and is attempting to get a rise out of the school psychologist to see if they will report what he has said. And we can assume that Ben's parents or guardians are not aware of the animal cruelty issues. Or we could also assume that, and we can assume that they will want to get him more help, the help he needs. The hypothesis I chose was that Ben may not be aware of the severity of the details he has disclosed, and if he is, or even if he isn't, he may not feel that the school psychologist could report anything or say anything to anybody because of confidentiality requirements. The suspicions we have are the school psychologist may be suspicious of Ben and whether he's actually being truthful about what he's disclosed. Parents or guardians could be suspicious of the information if it's reported to them, especially if Ben might go home and deny it. And Ben may be suspicious of staff and the school psychologist if the information is disclosed and he felt that it should be kept confidential. Innuendos. Ben has displayed the behaviors, as he said himself, that maybe should have led to somebody knowing what he's been doing. Maybe the family doesn't want the help of outside agencies, or the family may be afraid of the repercussions surrounding Ben and animal cruelty. We're going to talk about emotions now. For the school psychologist, this situation could put the school psychologist in an uncomfortable position. They have to determine if they should keep confidentiality with the student, or even if confidentiality is kept and the student discloses it himself, it still could be conveyed maybe that the school psychologist didn't coerced him into making that confession, or maybe with other students it could be viewed as Ben actually didn't disclose things himself, that the school psychologist may have broke confidentiality. When we're talking about administration in this situation, administration may feel they need to know about the situation. They may feel they need to protect other students. And by Ben disclosing what he had done, this could mean he may be a danger to other students. Because they are in charge of the schools and keeping students safe, they may feel that they should know about it. If staff have become aware of the situation, they may overreact, start rumors about Ben. If they're not told about the situation, they in turn may feel that they cannot trust administration of the school or the school psychologist, and they needed to be aware due to safety concerns. The frequency and intensity of this and duration of this behavior, the frequency and duration are not known. We're not 100%, we don't, obviously we're taking what Ben says and holding it as truth, but we don't know for sure that he's not just trying to get a rise out of the school psychologist, or possibly testing them to see if they will tell. So we don't know the frequency and duration. We know a little bit. We know there's more than one, um, but we don't know exactly how long it's been going on. Um, don't know how many animals he may have hurt or how long he's been doing it. The more that I talked to Ben about the situation, the more information I could gather. The intensity is high. This action can carry quite some pretty severe consequences for all parties involved. In looking at this situation, I looked at some ethical codes. The first one's respecting the dignity and rights of all persons, which is Ethical Code 1. And under that, Principle 1.2, privacy and confidentiality. In this situation, we want to talk to the student about, we don't want to disclose private information. We don't want to disclose information that would put the student or family at legal, social, or risk of others shared with third parties, except for permitted by health provider client privilege in their state. And in Idaho, it's my understanding that things that have to be reported are things such as if a student is harming themselves, if somebody is harming them, or if they're going to harm somebody else. And this case is very severe, but I don't know that it reaches the point of harming somebody else. There's also that we have to respect the confidentiality and information obtained during our personal works. So, it would be interesting. I mean, unless, of course, the parents were to sign a release of information to talk to somebody else or disclose. Another thing is honesty and integrity, which is number 3 in the ethical code. And basically to foster and maintain that trust in those relationships. And one thing I really liked was Standard 3 2.1, where we have to make sure our students or our kiddos understand our role and what our job is, and explain the professional services to the client and make sure they understand that we're here to support them and kind of guide them towards making the right decision. The legal principle 4.2 is that we need to be knowledgeable and respect for the laws and practice of school psychology to choose an appropriate course of action. So then we have the rights of each individual, and we have the rights of Ben, and it's important to consider his rights. He told the school psychologist in confidence the disclosure could have serious consequences for Ben, consequences that need to be taken into consideration, and it would be important for Ben to understand those consequences. When it comes to Ben's parents and guardians, it's important to consider how they would feel when they'd be informed of the situation. If it's decided that law enforcement needs to be involved, the parents should be a part of that decision-making process. But it's also important to consider the legal consequences and make sure that Ben is supported through the process. And other students, this is a very serious issue that could lead to jeopardizing their safety. So it's important to make sure that they are safe. The school psychologist it's important to take their rights into consideration as well, and determine make sure that they're doing what they need to do while I'm sorry, I lost my paper, so I'm trying to find it. I apologize. Okay. Make sure that the school psychologist's rights are protected and we're doing what we need to do to keep that confidentiality. I brought in the principal because it's not determined if the principal it'll be shared with him yet. But I think the principal's rights needs to be taken into consideration because his job is to protect the school, and it's a very serious issue. And in order to make sure other students are safe, the principal may need to be brought into this discussion. As well, staff, we don't want to tell staff about the whole situation, but um, if it was to be found out, they might feel that their safety was in jeopardy. And same with the school district. Obviously, the school district may not need to know the whole situation, but they may want to know, be involved in the safety planning and determining what they're going to do from here. When I consulted with my supervisor, I decided to just consult with the director of special education or another school psychologist. And I would discuss the situation without telling him exactly what was disclosed or who the student was. I would discuss my concerns about confidentiality, and we, decide if when it was appropriate, when it was not, to break that. My plan would be to guide the students into confessing what he did with support from me and hopefully his parents. And then I would support the student throughout the legal process. If the student refused to confess, I would discuss what things I need to disclose to others and why. And I would not disclose anything without first communicating with him what I needed to do and why. I would ask the director of school psychologist's opinions on my thoughts and ask them if they thought I was on the right track. So I'm hoping that they would say, yeah, I'm heading in the right direction, or maybe give me some guidance on, well, this is a situation they had and this is what they would do. I'm getting a list of possible solutions. First one is I could let the principal know or contact law enforcement. But if I did that, then trust would be lost with the student and he may not tell me anything more. It could also spill over to other students who might confide in the school in me. And it's just not ethical just to go and do that. Number two would be the school psychologist could guide the students to tell his parents, the principal, and law enforcement himself. And the school psychologist if the school psychologist had him tell somebody, like let's say that the student decided to just tell law enforcement, the parents' rights wouldn't be protected. They wouldn't have the opportunity to help their student, maybe make sure his legal rights are protected. So that's kind of an issue. The school psychologist could guide the student to tell his parents that he might need to be evaluated by a mental health professional. And that being said, maybe not disclose what's going on, but maybe make them aware that there's more going on and that he needs more support, more help from an outside agency. And at this time, we could ask for a release of information so that I could be in contact with the mental health professional and possibly ask if they thought it would be a good idea that a risk assessment would be done so we could determine the risk for the student to be in school with other students. The school psychologist could contact the parents directly. This could happen. It may damage the relationship between the student, and it may even possibly damage the relationship with the parents if the student were to go home and say, I didn't say that, and the parents are like, well, he's denying it. The school psychologist could assess the situation and make sure Ben would not cause any more harm to animals or anybody else. And in order to do this, there would have to be some disclosure to the parents and possibly to the principal. This could also result in law enforcement and possible arrest. The school psychologist could encourage Ben to do the right thing and tell his parents, and they could decide what the next steps they could help decide what the next steps would be. And the school psychologist um, this would be the best solution, I feel, because then the school psychologist could bring the parents in without breaking confidentiality, and they could help in the decision making process to come up with a plan and hopefully help Ben get the help he needs, and as well as protecting animals and others. Um, so when I'm going to make the decision and take responsibility, I want to talk to the student about the legal implications of harming animals. I will assess the situation to see what plans are to get Ben the help he needs and deal with his desires to harm animals. I will give Ben the opportunity to be a part of the decision making process on what to do next. And I will discuss the need for extensive counseling to help Ben deal with these issues. If Ben chooses not to do the right thing and tell his parents about the situation, I will then inform Ben that I will have to contact the parents and let them know in order to get him the best support and the support he needs. I will follow up by discussing with the parents, and if it's okay with them, the principal about the safety plan to not only keep the students safe at school, but also animals. What is my goal? The ultimate goal is to continue building a trusting relationship with Ben and guide him into making the right decision, as well as getting ongoing support for him to deal with his desires. Well, we'll have a crucial conversation with Ben, and supporting him in realizing there will be consequences for his actions, guiding him to make the correct choice, and that might lead to mistrust. So, in order to make it safe, I will acknowledge his honesty in telling me what he did, listen to his thoughts behind what he did, and explore further choices while I'm guiding him to make the correct choice. Share facts with what he's told me, tell my story and where I'm coming from, ask him to communicate his path and listen. Talk tentatively and review all the decisions we've talked about. Encourage him, invite him to share his perspectives. I want to keep it safe for Ben to share what he's thinking and feeling and listen while he's sharing it and be curious, while he's telling his story. I want Ben to be able to express himself and be able to communicate back how he looks or acts, and maybe paraphrase Ben's message so that he can hear what he's saying. Offer my best guess at what Ben is feeling or thinking, and make sure I ask questions to engage him in exploring what's going on and what needs to happen. What needs to go in the SPM? I think free flow of meaning during the dialogue. Make sure he's able to share his feelings while making it safe for him to discuss what's going on. And help Ben to be a part of that decision-making process, so that he has is a stakeholder in the plan that we come up with. And so it's not other people making the decision for him, but he's a good part of that decision. And the final considerations. Is my decision principled? Yes, I've explained to Ben the ethical and legal principles, allowed him to ask questions, and discussed how our decision aligns with ethical and legal standards. Is it reasoned? It's going, hopefully be, the decision was made by both Ben and I. Does it do more good? The decision for Ben to tell his parents and come clean will benefit him as he learns from his actions and we get him the support he needs. Is it generalizable? He knows he can make a mistake and confide in a trusting adult to help guide him to make better decisions and get the support he needs. And is it defendable? The decision is defendable as it's the best choice for Ben and will help maintain a trusting professional relationship with him and get him the support he needs to be successful. And that's my case presentation. Thanks.